What if there was a song specifically engineered to become a summer hit, made by a guy with no music talent, an AI and 20 years worth of Spotify scraped data? With summer just around the corner and the job market in the dumpster, join me in this magical music journey to answer this question. We can trace the origins of the summer hit all the way back to the 1600s, London. A young inspiring musician by the name of... Okay, I'm just kidding, I just wanted to feel like a real YouTuber for once. Alright, popular music, summer, what is it and how did we got here? Something important to understand is that these two concepts, summer and hit songs, are relatively new concepts. Summer vacations, for example, were not introduced in the US until the mid-19th centuries in an effort to standardize the school calendars across rural and urban areas. As the calendar standardized across regions, school leaders noted that mid- and upper-class families would travel to cooler climates during the summer, forcing some schools to close during the season due to low attendance. This, alongside the difficulty to keep the school buildings cool during the summer months, led to the creation of the summer break that we all know and love. Other things that we tend to associate with summer, like going to the beach, are relatively new as well. Back in the old days, the beach stirred fear and anxiety in the popular imagination and was synonymous with dangerous wilderness. It was where shipwrecks and natural disasters occurred. Daniela Bley writes for an Smithsonian article titled "Inventing the Beach." So, if that was the case, how did we went from this to this? Around the mid-18th century, the upper class in Britain began going to the beach, seeking to recover their health by staying away from the industrially polluted cities. Doctors of the time prescribed a plunge into the chilly waters to invigorate and enliven the body, whatever that means. The movement eventually led to the creation of the first seaside resort in the town of Scarborough, and with that, a whole new industry was born. In terms of music, more specifically hit songs, massive consumption of music is also a fairly new concept. Back in the day, you were only exposed to the music of your local area. Sure, there were some musicians that traveled from town to town singing tunes, but for the most part, you were at the expense of whatever your local music man was able to play. Like, if your friend Kyle here wasn't able to learn how to play Clair de Lune, you were bound to hear his rendition of Wonderwall at every single party, which to be fair is not so different to what happens inside college dorm rooms all around the world anyways. Another problem was that, let's say Kyle composes a really good song and one of the musicians passing by your town learns it and takes it to the next village but adds its own flair to it. By the time Kyle's song reaches the third village, it's practically a completely different song. And while there were many ways to write music in ancient times, the oldest one being the Horain songs that were inscribed in cuneiform on clay tables, it wasn't until the 1000 AC that an Italian monk by the name Guido d'Arezzo developed the first modern staff notation. This allowed the church to be the main music distributor during this time, however it had little to no effect within popular music since music literacy was even lower than regular literacy. More so, pieces like Gregorio Allegri's Miserere Deus were only allowed to be played during Holy Week inside the Sistine Chapel as, in the eyes and ears of the Pope, the choral work was so close to heaven and perfection that sharing its sheet of music would be criminal. In fact, it is said that only 3 copies ever left the Vatican, one for Padre Martini, one for the King of Portugal, and one for the Holy Roman Emperor. If by any chance the church caught you and your little cover band playing the piece, you would be excommunicated. The church, however, wasn't worried about people reproducing the piece either, since the course itself was considered to be so complex that it was impossible to be memorized only by ear. However, just like in Fortnite, it all got ruined once they began letting 14-year-olds inside the Sistine Chapel. Legend has it that Pope Clement XIV allowed a 14-year-old musical genius to participate in a Wednesday rendition of the piece inside the Sistine Chapel. The kid learned the piece and by Friday he had it perfectly written down. The kid in question? Elon Musk. Okay, it was actually Mozart, but you get the idea. Speaking of Mozart, there is this common misconception that the music of all of these household names such as Mozart and Beethoven was the most popular music during that period of time. Like, we've all seen the "when Beethoven dropped" memes, but this was not the case. And just for the record, he in fact did not miss, not even after going deaf. This notion comes from the fact that there was a distinction between being famous and being popular at the time. Back then, a farmer could have known who Mozart was through stories like the one above, and yet never know how his music sounded like. Since this type of music was pretty complex and was mostly enjoyed by the elite who consider it a luxury. Even if one of your friends pulled a Mozart and memorized his latest opera, it would be no different than handing that exact same piece of paper to Kyle and expect him and his cover band to perform it. Just listen to this bit of Mystery Museus and tell me if your local bar band that gets paid in beer could replicate this in any way or form. The average Joes of the time were more into folk songs, dances, and simpler tunes that they played at local gatherings. So, the reason why we remember these pieces of big composers is not only because they were masterpieces, but also due to survival bias. This music made it to our times not because it was the most popular, but rather because it was the only one that got written down, with a lot of the actual popular music being lost to time. Sadly, the top 40 of the 1600s disappeared just because no one wrote them down. Now, this gap between upper class and lower class music began to close during the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s because of two reasons. Steam-driven printing presses made sheet music cheap enough to be profitable as a mass market, and the instruments became cheaper and more accessible, allowing more people to get into music. It's here that people began treating music as just any other product instead of a luxury. During this period of time, you could even find song pluggers that were hired to play and promote new songs for customers at shops, theaters, and even at the new moving picture shows, where they sometimes use magic lanterns lights to project the words and have sing-alongs with the audience. After the invention of music records and the radio, the primary distinction between upper and lower class music shifted from access to social taboos and cultural attitudes towards certain genres such as jazz that was considered... I don't think I can say that word. Associated with lower socioeconomic classes. Rock and roll in the 50s was no different, being embraced by the youth and hard-working class communities, but was often condemned by the older generation and upper-class society for its perceived promotion of juvenile delinquency and moral decay. Hip-hop during the late 80s was no different. Something important to note here is that most of these genres did not got cultural relevance and commercial success until they were adopted by the upper classes, more specifically white women. Like, you know, if you've made it as a mainstream artist once you got white girls asking for one of your songs to be played at the club using their 4 hits. Like in the 50s, you got Elvis Presley, who repackaged the sounds of African American blues, gospel, and southern country inside the body of an attractive white male in order to make it more accessible to white audiences. In the 60s, you got the Beatles, who changed their motorbike leather jackets rock and roll look in favor of a more polished appearance to appeal to the audience of the time. Taylor Swift took country, a genre considered as redneck music for a long time, and transformed it into musical crack for white women in the 2000s. The latest example of this would be Bad Bunny in 2022 with Un Verano Sin Ti that introduced reggaeton to many American clubs. The Elvis phenomenon made labels realize how lucrative the teenage market was by targeting this audience through television appearances, merchandise, and movies to boost their sales. The invention of television meant that the appearance of an artist was as, if not more important than the music itself. Finally, the need of music labels to understand and measure the popularity and sales of their records led to the creation of the Billboard charts, giving us for the first time in history a way to measure the popularity of music genres and artists through time. While trying to understand how the Hot 100 charts work, I stumbled with this Reddit post by a user named Coffee that I highly recommend you to read. He goes into great detail on the mechanics of the charts as well as all the changes that it has gone through the years. The original Billboard Hot 100 premiered as the first major market all-encompassing singles popularity chart on the 4th of August 1958. The chart was originally made using a formula that combined retail sales, DJ plays, and jukebox activity. This information was collected through surveys. This changed in November 1999 when Nielsen SoundScan officially replaced the use of surveys to collect data to create the Hot 100. With a combination of accurate sales figures from a point-of-sale system and electronically monitored AI data compiled by Nielsen, the Hot 100 began using for the first time actual and precise data. The next big change to the chart came on August 4, 2007, when on-demand streaming was introduced, tracking the data from AOL Music and Yahoo Music. This inclusion had little to no impact at the time, since the number of streams per song barely reached a couple million per month. The last big change came in May 2018 when Billboard announced the decision to split streams based on the plan they belonged. Subscription plans would now represent 1 point per play, with ad-supported plans representing 2/3 of a point per play. Program streams such as Radio, Pandora, and Slacker Radio were awarded half a point per play. This change was made to adjust the nature of each reproduction, since a subscription user chooses what song to hear, meanwhile an ad-supported and program stream users only listen to whatever the platform throws their way. These reweights, however, did not have much of an impact in the actual chart, as most Americans stream through premium accounts anyway. Finally, here is an image that illustrates how the Billboard tracks songs through any given week. There are many other nuances to the chart, such as the concept of recurrence and how certain scenarios might prevent the song from reaching the chart. However, these are better explained in these two posts by Coffee. Now that we have a better understanding of the chart, let's go on a journey through music, space, and time. Using the Billboard Hot 100, I made a timeline showing every song that has ranked number 1 during the summer months from August 1958 all the way to September 2021. We can see how during the 60s and the 70s we got around 7 ranked number 1 songs per summer, a trend that somewhat continued during the late part of the 80s, where it seems like it was particularly hard to maintain the number 1 spot. After 1992 though, we see that most summers had around 4 number 1 ranked songs on average, with only 2 summers in 2018 and 2020 having 7 number 1 ranked songs. However, if we zoom in the chart, we can see that in the case of 2018, 3 of these songs were actually Drake's Nice for What, charting in 3 different dates, leaving really only 4. In 2020, we get that DaBaby's Rockstar charted in 2 different dates, leaving only 6 distinct songs. During this time span, we get 2 instances where a song held number 1 rank during an entire summer, with these 2 songs being 2017 Despacito and 1998 The Boy Is Mine. This is a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? In theory, TikTok and social media in general should make the charts more volatile, but it's quite the opposite. Why, you may ask? It all goes back to the way the top 100 has changed through time. If you remember, the Billboard in the 80s was made up almost entirely by 2 components, sales and airplay impressions. This means that back in the 80s, the Hot 100 essentially tracked sales. Once a person bought a cassette, tape, from a single or artist, it was impossible to know whether that person listened to Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush once, or if that person had to keep that thing on repeat all day due to the fear of being abducted by a demon from another dimension. Just something to keep in mind, you know? We also know that this trend of having less songs hit number 1 began somewhere in the early 90s, but if we take a closer look, we can see that it specifically began in 1992, which coincides with the November 1991 switch to the Nielsen SoundScount system that replaced the use of surveys to collect data. Better data collection, alongside the ability to track the amount of times a song is reproduced throughout its lifetime, is what led to the changes in the top 100. We could also talk about algorithms and how social media and streaming platforms feed off each other, but we will get sidetracked from the main goal, which is... Going back to the original dataset, we can see that it has a lot of values, numeric values that we can use in order to train an AI to create the song, so let's have a look. Danceability determines the ease with which a person could dance to a song over the course of the whole song. It is measured by using a mixture of song features such as beat strength, tempo stability, and overall tempo. Energy represents the spirit and vigor of a song by measuring elements like momentum, tempo, intensity, speed, and strength. Key refers to the major or minor scale around which a piece of music revolves around. In this case, it is represented in a scale from 1 to 12. Mood indicates the modality, major or minor, of a track. Speechiness detects the presence of spoken words in a track. Values above 0.66 describe tracks that are probably made entirely of spoken words. Acousticness is a confidence measure from 0 to 1 of whether the track is acoustic or not. Instrumentalness predicts whether a track contains no vocals. Rap or spoken word tracks are clearly vocal. The closer the instrumentalness value is to 1, the greater the likelihood is that the track contains no vocal content. Liveness detects the presence of an audience in the recording. Higher liveness values represent an increased probability that the track was performed live. A value above 0.8 provides a strong likelihood that the track was, in fact, performed live. Valence is a measure from 0 to 1 describing the musical positiveness conveyed by a track. Tracks with high valence sound more positive, while tracks with low valence sound more negative. Finally, we have the tempo, the overall estimated tempo of a track in beats per minute or BPM. Now that we know what each one of these numbers represent, let's take a quick look at how the music has changed in the last 20 years. First, we can see a trend of making shorter music, with the average song in 1999 being around 4.2 minutes long compared to 3.6 minutes in 2020. Songs have also become more danceable, having a 0.7 value, which coincides with an increment in the song's tempo and energy through time. Despite having more energetic music, lyrics have progressively become more negative, hitting an all-time low in 2018 only to recover in 2019. All this is good and well, but how can we use these values in order to create that sweet summer viral hit that will have us touring the world in 2025? Well, we can begin by doing the exact same analysis that we did with the top 100 music for the last 20 years, however, this time for the summer hits. I went to Spotify in order to search for summer hit playlists for each year in order to scrape the data, however I ended up finding this personalized summer hits playlist per decade. Using a little bit of Python magic and the Spotify API, I created a dataset that contains the numerical values we just talked about for each song in the 2024 playlist. One of the benefits of using the Spotify's API is that it gives you access to the recommendation engine that allows you to make the playlist based on a specific numerical audio feature, so I calculated the max and minimum values for each one of them. In order to create a playlist, you also need to input a combination of 5 seed genres and artists in total. I tried using different genres and artist inputs, however I ended up settling for pop and hip hop as the genre seeds and Bad Bunny, Dua Lipa and Drake as the artist seeds. I threw all of these numbers inside a blender and ended up with this definitive playlist. Something interesting is that no matter what combination I use, 16 by Baby Keem and One Dance by Drake were always present in the recommended playlist. As a final step, I averaged all of the values so I could use them as an input for an AI. Now, there was only one question left to answer. In order to accomplish this, someone would have to illegally download a huge amount of songs with the audio features we got from the definitive summer playlist. You split one of these tracks into their multiple instruments so that the model can learn how to play each one accordingly. The model will also have to learn vocal features such as pitch, harmony and tone, and modulation that are already hard to learn as a regular human being. Finally, the same model will have to go through a database of song lyrics in order to learn how to write coherent lyrics that are also tied to all of the audio features inputted such as energy, balance, tempo, and so on to prevent your song from sounding something like this meme. So, let's get to it. I'm just kidding. If I knew how to make this, I wouldn't be making YouTube videos. I would probably be committing tax fraud or whatever rich people do in their free time. Lucky for me, there are already a wide variety of models online that have the capability of creating music, however, none of these are coming for your SoundCloud rapper career anytime soon. Or at least that's what I thought. Deep into my research, I found Suno, and this AI is the real deal. All that you need to do is to type a prompt into this text box here, and then the model generates a minute and a half song with lyrics that I'll admit sound like writing with the autofiller and a voice that sings accordingly. After I got the track, I made use of AI one more time in order to break down the instruments and vocals of the song so I could do some fine tuning in GarageBand. Finally, I hired a rapper on Fiverr so that he could drop some bars in the middle so he could make it feel more alive. I ended up creating 2 songs, however the one I'm leaving you with is the one that I created by using the audio features as a prompt. That would be all for me today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.
Feeling the heat on the streets. Turn up the beat, grooving with my crew and we're feeling so free. Got the sunshine in our souls, we're on a roll. Let the rhythm take control, baby. Lose control. Sun's out, baby, time to play. No time for shade. Dancing all night under the stars, we're not afraid. Hands up in the air, feel the breeze through your hair. No worries, no cares, just feel the music everywhere. Let's dance in the summer heat, feel the rhythm, move your feet. Sunshine vibes, it's a feeling so sweet. We're dancing like there's no tomorrow, no need for sorrow. In the summer, we're gonna party all night. Yeah, we're gonna go all out.
Yeah, overtossing on the page, not the aim. Daily battling all of these stains. The sky is grey on the side, even with no rain. I still paint and still claim, hardest worker in this building. It just ain't worth the change. The second I open my eyes, shake up and turn to my side, glance on my list, the fear's not giving back before I die. That's forbidden, God forbid that. Mixing all these spices like some crackhead, this my rain track.